My name is Halimatu Sise. I'm a Gambian student and journalist. When I was 9 years old, my grandmother took me to see a woman who cut off my clitoris. I want to know why FGM is in our culture and why people now want to change this tradition. I'm talking to imams about what our religion says about FGM, and I'm meeting members of our government, including the president, to talk about the law. This is my FGM story. I began my journey 2 years ago by asking members of my own family about FGM, starting with my sister. We were both cut together, so what do you remember?
Ibuka song te nyaayeji. Ika feneta ye nyaasiti. Ika feneta ye nyaasiti ni ye nyaasiti. Ika dimonyen kala mu te fam kalon neku. Sai. Bari me yakile nyaabuka woji.
I know you had Nafi cut, so what does the future hold for her, Ramo?
Ndafita wala fanana pour kasam.
Pour kasam. Sayte aje ko nyaka da betiara.
Abetiara.
Okay.
My mother is very traditional, and she told me why she thought she was doing the right thing by having her girls cut, including me.
Okamala waya kumande bake na aluko kato ni menta itikalo na muni asina gatata eka adawol kala mutaje eka kuwol kala mutaje eka itanya fana alo kono ko alfali si bunya nyami.
My best friend was sealed after being cut, which means she has just a tiny hole left to urinate and menstruate. Girls are not told this will cause problems when they marry, so her wedding night was a shock.
I was told that I have to go. I have to be opened again because the place that was left for me was too small to have time with my husband. So I was taken to a lady, I say an old woman, to open me up, which I can say was a very difficult experience for me because I have to face the woman and look her in the eyes and do what she have to do. I cried, but it's something that I have to do, so.
An organization called Safe Hands for Girls and the British newspaper The Guardian held a conference in 2015 calling for an end to FGM. I met Jaha Dukure, whose campaign has taken her all over the world. Women at the conference were talking about their experiences of FGM.
I am doing this because I'm a survivor. I am doing this because all of us are survivors. I am doing this in order to protect the future generation. I have nieces, I have a daughter who I don't want her to be circumcised. So as I continue engaging my family, especially my mother, then at some point she apologized to me. She told me, my daughter, I am sorry. I didn't know that this is the consequences of this practice. Had I known, I wouldn't have performed it on you.
Noise, a lot of activities going around. People were dancing in drums and there were people holding mango leaves and dancing. So there was a lot of noise. Someone was holding the lap, and I was blindfolded because you can't see anything. You were blindfolded, but I just remember being put on top of a lap of a woman, and then there was a cut.
As well as the stories, we saw a theme showing a baby and a young girl being cut.
For the men, it was the first time they had seen what FGM really was.
The video that we have seen is very inhuman, and my challenge or question to my fellow journalists and activists is, what next?
Tell them to stop cutting you, stop restructuring you, to start loving you, start appreciating all of you, because you are a standing ovation. You are symphonies of laughter. You're the light at the end of the tunnel.
Less than a week after the conference, President Jammeh banned FGM. It was all over the newspapers, but then the election brought in a new government, and some people were questioning whether things would go back to the old ways.
We now have a law banning FGM in the Gambia, but some people are saying it's a Jammeh's law and it doesn't mean anything now. I want to meet President Barrow and ask him if the law still stands.
I got my opportunity 6 months after President Adama Barrow came to power.
Mr. President, we want to know your government's stand when it comes to the FGM law.
We contested election on the basis of the principle of democracy, the principle of rule of law. So we respect all laws in the Gambia and in the world, and we respect all protocols.
We know that the people of this country are recently finding it difficult to accept the law. What is your government stand on this? What are you doing to make sure that we enforce this law to the letter, the FGM law?
We will make it possible, not only the FGM laws, but all laws in this country must be respected. Anybody who violates the laws will be prosecuted. No doubt about that. We will not compromise the principle of rule of law. I think we cannot move as a country if we don't have laws in place, and laws have to be respected.
At a press conference after my interview, I told other journalists what the president had said, but I still needed to know what exactly the law states.
So can you tell us someone who violates this law,
yes,
what the person is expected?
Okay, yes. So basically the law, the amendments outlaw the practice of FGM. It criminalizes the practice. It prescribes prison sentences for people who are caught in the act of FGM. It doesn't just criminalize the people who carry out the act, but it also criminalizes parents who carry children to the people who carry out this practice. It imposes quite harsh sanctions of up to 20 years of imprisonment for the practice of FGM. And it doesn't just stop there, but then when there are acts of FGM which result in death of the victim, it imposes the capital sanction, which is you're charged with murder, and if found guilty, you're sentenced to death.
When did you first find about FGM, and what do you think?
5 years ago, in one of the conferences, when I actually saw pictures of FGM, and that's when I got to learn about what the FGM actually was, and the pictures were gruesome, and I couldn't believe human beings were doing this to other human beings under the context of trying to protect them. It was a jolting moment. I was speechless. I personally believe it's highly mistaken for people to think it's a positive health practice. Statistics have shown that it's even more harmful to health. FGM is responsible for many stillbirths because of all the ways in which it is carried out. FGM has caused problems of infertility, it's caused problems of reproductivity. It's gruesome.
One of the main justifications for FGM is religion. FGM is not in the Quran, but it is seen as a religious practice. I want to know why.
képp koo xam ne góor nga te defuloo ko soo jullee sa julli baaxut soo toggee sa togg waruñ koo lekk soo rendee comme xar bi waruñ koo lekk mu ne yow génne ni la ci ñi nga xam ne ci l'islam lañ bokk mu ne kon loolu mooy li nga xam ne ci jigéen ci góor loolu lañ ko wax waaye loolu waxuñ ko jigéen su fekkee ne affaire l'islam la l'islam boo demee ci sootul Hujuraat lu mu wax góor rek ci loo xam ne jëf bu rafet la rek am naa téere boo xam ne kii docteur Ali Sabaki mooy ki nga xam ne moo ko bind soo demee ci biir téere bi da nga fekk mu ngi waxtaan ci affaire lii li ci borom xam-xam yi wax yëpp mu ngi ko ci wax moo ne daal mbir la moo xam ne dañ koo sopp mbir la moo xam ne teraanga la am na ñoo xam ne sax wax nañ ndax am sunna la am na ci borom xam ñoo xam ne wax nañ ne ñu ne sunna la am na ci borom xam yoo xam ne dañ wax ne sax dafa war ci góor ak jigéen waaye ñi gën a bari nag ci borom xam-xam yi dañoo wax ne loolu amul kon ku delluwaat ci téere bi.
In a case whereby the harm is more than the benefits, what's the state of Islam in that?
kon su boobaa da nga gis ne suñ gisee ne nag lor bi moo ëppa lii nga xam ne mooy njëriñ li kon su subaa dañ koy war a bàyyi gannaaw lor ma mucc ndax alxuraanul karim muy téere bi nga xam ne mu lañ jox sang Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam dafa mention mu ne wala tulqu bi aydikum illa tahluka mooy bu leen dee gis lu leen lor ba pare ngeen dugal ci seen bopp.
Staying away from harm is very important in Islam. I met Imam Babali, who spoke to me of his own personal experience of the harm FGM can do.
I belong to a tribe that practice it. And my own sister happened to fall a victim of this practice. And my mother's auntie was a circumciser. And as you may know, my father was the imam of the Serekunda Central Mosque for many years, and he taught so many people. But with all that, my father himself had never been convinced that this has anything to do with Islam. He had never tried to stop it because he believed that it was a culture, and the way people see it is women's issue. You don't have anything to do with it as a man. With me, I see things differently. Whatever is women's issue is men's issue, because men and women are one unit, you know. So how can one sensible person link those filthy practices with Islam, you know? And they try to justify it when the Prophet migrated from Mecca, he went to Medina, he met Atiyah, all those things. Even those who rebuild the Hadith said categorically is an unauthenticated Hadith. But I'm going beyond that. I'm going beyond by saying, even if it was an authenticated one, but there is harm for it, wherever the harm comes from, and that has nothing to increase in your faith or decrease on your faith, leave it alone to protect yourself, because health is very important as far as Islam is concerned.
What can be done to replace the traditions?
Well, that itself makes me mad, because a bad tradition, why should you find a replacement for it? It's bad, believe it. It's bad, leave it. Why are you worrying yourself to replace it? What for? If you replace, whatever you replace, if it is as bad as it is bad, that's all. Leave it, replace with education, replace it with good studies, replace it with learning trade, replace it with good practices. We have very good practices. So I'm not going to waste my time researching to what should I replace it with. No, I don't need to replace it. It's bad, I leave it, that's all. It's just like asking a smoker, now if you stop smoking, what are you going to replace it? Should I tell you cola or bitter cola or what? I will not tell you anything. I will leave it. It's bad. Because it's bad, you leave it, period.
This is the Women's Bureau of the Gambia, and we are here to see Ms. Binta Sidibe. She is the director of the Women's Bureau, and she has been very influential when it comes to making sure that the public understand fully well that the FGM law is here to stay. When it comes to some of our men, when you talk to them regarding FGM, they try to bring religion to silence our women. What special message do you have for them?
You know, what makes it very interesting, you know, Halima, is that certain ethnic groups, they don't practice. And they are Muslims. The Wolofs, they are Muslims. They don't practice it. And the Wolofs, to tell you the truth, they are very, very religious. When it comes to religion, well, I'm not criticizing other ethnic groups, but I know for sure the Wolofs, they are very, very religious. You have the religious sects in Senegal, you have them here in Gambia, the people themselves. So are they the others like us Mandinkas or the Jolas or some Fulas? Are we more religious than those Wolofs? Why are they not, you know, condemned? So that alone for me is enough in the Gambia.
Personally, what makes you come out? What was the driving force behind you coming out and denouncing FGM, fighting against FGM in the country?
when I had my first child, I had some problems, and I overheard the nurse at the time who was saying, you know, it's because of the female circumcision. So because of that, I had an interest in it. I didn't know. That was my first really information that came to me that female circumcision was harmful because of my own personal experience.
Many women who are cut have problems, especially when it comes to pregnancy and childbirth. In the rural areas, many are treated by midwives like Sophia. But most women give birth at home, so often they have suffered a lot before they get to a clinic.
The problems are definitely too much. Most of the problem that we have is after they do this FGM, they normally have very tight orifice, and some of them have scar, a very terrible scar. And this scar, it doesn't help the perineum to stretch, because normally when a woman is in labor and is about to deliver, the perineum stretches so that there will be a wide opening so that the baby can pass. But if there is this scar, it prevents the perineum from stretching, and it leads to very bad complications like tears. And this tears leads to, it could be upper tear, which can damage the bladder, or a lower tear that can cause rectovaginal fistula, which can cause some kind of fistula, an opening between the rectum and the vagina, and there will be stool coming out from the vagina. So these are cases where they are difficult to treat and handle here. There was a lady I also met. She had FGM done, and they did like something like sealing, and she was given to her husband for her to go and get married, and the husband cannot go in. And she had to come back to the hospital, and the doctor, because before she came to the hospital, they were taking her to all these Ngansim bars, and they were trying to open it up with scalpel blade and everything, razor blade. But then later on, when they were tired, they brought her to the hospital. And it was so bad. You know, that woman went through real pain she went through. So I think definitely with that one that I saw, I was in tears because it was not fair. I feel it's not fair. It should come to an end, definitely.
I am finding out so much about FGM, but I feel that a person I also need to speak to is a cutter. I want to know if there is a way to be traditional without cutting.
Iko nga nyin ngalandi ya chosano ke sela ndefa nga dindo sama mena ko dole na tanu njang ni to programme ke ya dindo be jama ko ma sama barin ka sama ko lolo ko to ndata na nga ndongo ke ya ndata na tata ulo ko na tandara men keta ban ni aye wotu mo murchili bar ta ni aye murchili ngobula aka boko sasale be cheering sasale siata jata kenda bunda mol nata fa ko nkana mol kana sai nunto muro mole wolande munem sasale be cheering melan ko ikanyo soundala so wulat na ya iko nga wobula sa ni me mobta wulo kono mo ni la lanseto iko nga nyin ngalande ya chosano ke sela ndefa nga dindo sama mena ko dole na tanu njang ni to programme ke ya dindo be jama ko ma sama barin ka sama ko lolo ko so ndata na nga ndongo ke jang ndata na tata ulo ko na tandara men keta.
I am beginning to understand that we can be good Muslims and respect our culture as Gambians without FGM, but I also know it is very hard to change a practice that has been a tradition for thousands of years. I want to go back to where my journey began with my own family.
It has been 2 years since those interviews with my family, and I'm back here again to see if things have changed, especially after the interview that I had with the President of the Republic of the Gambia, President Adama Barrow. The President of the Republic of the Gambia, President Barrow, has said that FGM law, like any other laws, would be respected and would be enforced by his government. What do you think of that statement?
President wa menfo wala kumutu me yalonko wala kumo fana hasata adu wala fana banko mul fana wala fana kumate nyakoto adu wala fana bunya fana warta bawo kule me alon ko biri ani luwala fonko manta woto a jartal ko mobe saku kumandi adu mobe saku bunya fana a woto jo kamal hada madu bebe kankil neti woto me alon ko luwa ya fo nyame mbe ya tamandi wo nyama sin dolla sin so mana fa kamal tuma do bato ni mole woto fana noma askeno men ka ake o kirlal mo be wol fana noma la kenyinin ka ni ngatra misal fe hanni nyaka manke askeno wo ada kul wol siita komen tol fana la ntol dingol ntol yakele adu nga dingol fana wol fana yake para sikeno tol fana bina men wulula o ada kul men bina filila isaje o kamala ko ni mo o sikeno wol fana so ada kul kalamuta awto nyama o kumata ko mo suwol noma men yalan ko kake keta nyaka kelat hanna tra nyaka manke.
The other important person for me to ask is my sister.
We've come here in 2015 to interview you on your decision to cut your youngest daughter, that is Ramu. So, did you cut her or not?
Honey, masamba follow.
Masamba follow. Mana sawe masamba follow.
Ngajele ko sambaro nyi amang loti me yalon ka man betia ala jata kendiato wala tina masamba andu mamira mbasamba.
Okay, what are other people's reaction when it comes to female genital mutilation? Do you think we are changing the trend of cutting girls in this country?
Ha, nyaka nyi ngaji ko soje ka be falinkani andu niaje nyaka nyi be falinkam comme ça jata kendia men bunda men ayama andu jata kendia men ya fa kunatola wala sabu mobe lafta o jata kendia la wala atina nyaka nyi ngaji ko soje ko be falinna.
She's a curse upon her family, useless flesh. She must be cut, restructured, reanimated, fitted only for her man. You're a blessing. You were perfect. Never let society convince you otherwise.